I'm Allie. I came out after 20 years of marriage, and I have 3 kids.
I'm Melissa, and I have 2 kids, and I came out at 37 after an 11-year marriage.
This podcast is about coming out later and the struggles and victories that come with it.
When coming out feels like the end of the world, but it's really just the beginning.
This is the Lesbian Chronicles. Welcome to the Lesbian Chronicles, you little bitch.
You little bitch. Prior to recording, we were talking about how little bitch is the best cut down you can really zing somebody with.
Well, what does it mean to you to be a little bitch? Like, to me, it's like you're just such a crybaby.
You're whiny.
Yeah, you're such a little crybaby
bitch.
Don't be such a little bitch.
Should we not get into the misogynistic nature of the insult?
I know.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that, Jamie. Wow.
Don't email us.
Yeah, please don't email us. Wow, that sucks.
Pure fun.
Yeah, we did mean it in pure fun. But what's really fun is that we have Jamie back on the show.
Hello.
Dr. Jamie, which now Melissa, who's your friend, calls you Dr. Jamie,
That's
even
so
like
funny.
to me.
It's funny because nobody in my entire career has ever actually called me that, except for the one time I saw teenagers.
Literally.
It just flows well.
Dr. Jamie. She's like, yeah, well, Dr. Jamie. And I'm like, you mean Jamie?
That's so funny.
You mean our friend
Our
Jamie?
friend.
Dr.
Do you mean our
Jamie.
friend Jamie?
I fully expect you to call me that forevermore, even over drinks.
Do you mean our friend Jamie?
It's better than little bitch.
It's better than little
That's
bitch.
true, although sometimes I might prefer that now.
It is better than little bitch.
Oh my God,
it's
that's
definitely
so funny.
better than little bitch. All right. Yeah. So Jamie is joining us today, and we are talking about kids, families, blending, and little bitches.
Little bitches. I mean, let's be honest here. Kids are not always the most fun people in the world.
No.
to be
No.
around.
And
Like,
they can
be
definitely
tough.
add something to the relationship.
They can add a lot.
A lot of
Or
good.
take a lot away.
Valid. Exactly.
Yes.
Add or detract.
But I think what brought this up is we've had a couple emails. One in particular is that one of our listeners met this woman who does not have children, and the child is 5 years old. And as they're getting to know each other, falling in love, like they're way into each other, but the partner is not that into the child. In the partner's defense, she feels, or what she expressed is she feels kind of left out of this like scenario. And so it's like if the child is around, I'm not like the main event now. Or, you know, maybe I'm not even, you two are picking each other and I'm kind of just here a third wheel.
Yeah. So what's the question?
So the question became just how do you, like at what
How do
point
I
do you
off
say,
this kid?
how do I, yeah, exactly.
Start with calling them a little bitch. I think the problem will resolve
I can
itself.
talk more about that. No, I think
I
that
think
like,
the question should be, how do you cope with that? How do you...
And is it okay? Like, do you work through it? Or is it just like, you know what? This probably isn't going to be the relationship for me long term. Or maybe there is like things you can do to try to make it easier or look at it differently.
Regardless of, I think, the outcome or you know, what somebody ultimately decides, there is something to work through. There is something to explore and understand, because the first question I would have is, what are the different parts of the situation and the experience of both people that are creating friction in the relationship? Is it an issue of, you know, the partner without kids really wants and needs to be priority?
Yeah.
To be put first, to be chosen. And
Don't we all feel that way in
sure.
relationship?
But I think how, you know, it can be a source of jealousy, right? So I think what I'm getting at is that I would be curious to know more about what are the different experiences or kind of feelings that are coming up that are creating the problem. Because it really is just as simple as, I don't like your kid, or I don't want to be a co-parent, or I don't want to have to share you. It's what else is going on in the relationship, and how connected are they? How much do each of them participate in, I don't know, honoring the agreement that they have to spend time together and have that time be quality time? Like, because, you know, in order to cope with anything, you have to first be clear about what the expectations are from the beginning, right? Like, okay, you have a kid, I don't. What are some of the things that might come up, and how are we going to deal with them?
And she did say she felt like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, but she felt like she had created all these spaces around, I got a babysitter for this, and I did this, and I did this to make sure that we had. But at the end of the day, if you have a 5-year-old, you have a 5-year-old.
Well, yeah, so going in, I mean, if you're somebody, especially if you don't have kids and you don't kind of relate to what it's like to be a parent, it can be really hard to find like an empathy, because it's hard to empathize with something that you just have no experience with or no connection with. In any new relationship or even an established relationship, you're always in competition for the other person's other priorities.
Yeah.
The priority of being an involved, engaged parent is a tough one to compete with.
Yes.
Right? And so it sort of presents itself immediately as this, I'm never going to win this one, right? Your kid is always going to come first. So there's probably already some anxiety about having to be second.
Yes.
Or the expectation that I might be second. And so you're preemptively maybe annoyed or defensive or kind of primed to be disappointed.
Right.
And that's where, just communication is so important. What are the expectations? How often, do I or both of us need alone time, time without the kid?
It's even like if you're with the kid, it sounds so like this damn kid. But even if you're like with the kid, you do feel like they take center stage. Like I have some friends who, when their kids are there, and I have 3 kids, I'm way into the kid thing. But if their kids are there, their kids are center stage in a way that maybe I could see where that would be annoying. It's one thing to have your child there and we're all 3 hanging out. It's another thing if you bring your child and your child is the center of attention all night.
Well, but there's a difference between being annoyed, and it like coming between you,
right?
I mean, most people are going to get annoyed by a lot of things in a relationship where there's challenges, right? And there's challenges in every relationship. I think depending on the nature of the connection and how safe both people feel and how good the communication is, most things can be worked through with just a little bit of conversation and maybe some boundary setting.
Right.
But, if you're just annoyed because the kid is, maybe demanding more attention or, acting up. I mean, a 5-year-old, you're going to have to deal with a 5-year-old sometimes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So it's kind of like, if you got to know yourself. Like, what is your capacity for tolerating annoying situations?
Right.
Maybe at the end of the day, you say to yourself, I don't enjoy this like so much.
Yeah.
That maybe I opt out of like the family nights.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
why is it required or expected to have the 3 of them even get together if it's so unpleasant?
That's interesting you're saying that, because I just saw something about how we do force what we want. Like somebody was talking about like they make their boyfriend go to some family thing and he's miserable, and then it's like makes her miserable that maybe he could just, why are we making him go?
That's a really important question. Like, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to each of them to spend that time together? Right? If it's important to both of them that they figure out how to make it work, that's a different story. But why is it important to the partner with the kid that there be this time together, right? If it's so unenjoyable or creates so many problems or friction between them, especially depending on the nature of the commitment in the relationship. I mean, if you're moving in together, if you're, deciding you're going to blend families, right? Even if you don't have a kid, you're still blending families,
yes.
Right? That's where I think you have to really negotiate, like, what are the boundaries going to be? What are the expectations? What is going to be, the number of hours that we spend? What are we going to do with that time? And how do I tolerate or cope with the moments that are, tricky? If we're in the middle of a conversation and the kid has a tantrum, like, what's the game plan? So in any relationship, especially where there are kids, you have to assess your degree of flexibility and willingness to compromise, willingness to check your irritation and figure out what's important for me to like bring to the table of the relationship and what's important to sort of figure out how to deal with on my own.
And maybe even asking, like, why am I, like, I think that's interesting too, is like, do I really care if they're being annoying? It's not like, why am I so annoyed? I used to have to do that early on. Like, why is this so triggering for me?
And what was it?
For me, it was that I had children too. And so I felt like this sense of like, to me, it was like, I said it, allocation of resources. Like, if we only have so many kids we can watch do something, I don't want to spend 45 minutes on this kid and my kids are not getting the same thing. I felt very, that would irritate the shit out of me.
Yeah. So what you're speaking to, I think you called it resources, but you can also call it like your energy, or your bandwidth. And that might vary, day to day, week to week.
Right.
You might have more capacity on some days or evenings than you do on others. And so everybody is responsible for monitoring their own battery life, their own energy, their own resources. If you've had a really long day at work and the last thing you want to do is have to entertain somebody else's 5-year-old, then it's your responsibility to say, you know what, I'm not up to it tonight, right?
Yeah.
If you have the kid, great. Why don't you guys have a nice night together and we'll do something the next night, right?
But is that like, Melissa, I'd be curious if you would say, because your partner did not have children, would that be threatening to you? Like, it's threatening to me to hear a partner say, you guys are on your own tonight.
I mean, she wouldn't flat out say that, but
she said it in other ways.
Nights where it was like she had plans with other friends or something. So yeah, it wasn't like she wasn't going to come hang out with us, that kind of stuff.
And did that feel like shit? She chose?
No, not really, because I think like for me, especially with a partner, I don't want them to like be doing things just to accommodate me and what I want. I want someone who's like gonna pick and choose what is good for them. Now, if this was like all the time, like, yeah, I don't want to be around you and your kids, then yeah, that would make me mad. But if it's like, oh, like I want to go meet so-and-so for drinks tonight, like I probably won't get there until, 9:30, 10 o'clock once the kids are in bed. Like, that's fine with me. Like,
and how it's brought up too. Like you said, if somebody said that to you, you might feel a little offended, but there's always a way to have hard conversations with kindness and openness and curiosity and compassion, especially if you're securely attached and the relationship is going really well. Otherwise, your relationship should be a safe place to have hard conversations. And so this might just be a hard conversation that has to happen. And so to your point, Melissa, you want someone to be honest rather than over accommodating for the sake of avoiding an argument.
And I want someone to come play Blockus with us.
Right.
Instead of the drinks.
It's too hard. But I think it's also like, there's just choices to be made in a relationship. Right. Like different priorities. It could be the same could be said for someone who's like a workaholic.
Yeah.
You're spending too much time working and traveling and not enough time with me. And that hurts,
That's right.
So
that's right. It could be work. It could be family. It could be kids. It could be a hobby. Or it could be working out. It could be alone time, right? Everybody is going to have to, everyone's always going to have to, feel chosen enough of the time that they feel secure in the relationship. And that's going to vary, right? Some people have more needs to feel like a priority more often. And some people are more comfortable being more independent. So I think it just depends on, your sort of style of being in a relationship, how secure you are in yourself and how secure you are in the relationship.
Right.
But there's a difference between being annoyed because you're not really a kid person versus the relationship you have with your kid, and the way that I sort of fit into that brings up a lot of feelings of insecurity for me. And then I
think it's more that.
And if that's the case, that's sort of more about that than the kid.
Yeah.
Right? And the kid becomes sort of an easy scapegoat.
It's that feeling of not being chosen.
Exactly.
Like, like you've got limited time and it's, the evening, you're all sitting around watching TV and the kid wants to sit next to the parent. And and the partner feels left out.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, what partner wouldn't prefer to have the kid go to bed so that you can?
But that's right. The kid goes to bed, and then you get that time. Like, that's the way I see it. Like, the kid gets to sit next to me until 8:30. They go to bed, and then hang out with my partner.
it becomes a choice about, am I the kind of person that is going to have an easy or difficult time dating somebody with kids? Know yourself. And it may be that you don't know until you experience it, but you're going to learn something. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, this bothers me more than I thought it would, or it bothers me more than I'd like it to. I can communicate about it, or I can decide, maybe I don't want to date people with kids.
You do see that sometimes, like people say. But like you're not in this situation, but you have kids. Do you think it would be easier to, it almost seems like in some ways it's easier to have somebody has them.
In some ways, but I also think it depends on the age.
And then harder in other ways.
Yeah, and if your kid, how I don't want to say easy because that sounds judgmental, but some kids have, there's different person. It's a whole separate human being.
Yeah.
Right? So energy level, maybe the kid has ADHD, or maybe the kid, is more independent, and so they play in their room most of the time, and then it's not an issue, right? So developmental stage, how involved the parent, was before the relationship, started, right? If the kid, because let's not forget, like, this is an adjustment for the kid too.
Right, massively.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so the kid has the right, just as much as the two adults, to, I don't know, be given some time to adjust to the new situation, and some grace. And the fact that, they're not maybe used to having to share their mom, and in some cases share their mom with another woman.
Yeah.
Right?
And sometimes kids act out in those situations.
Exactly. Exactly.
They act even more like a little bitch.
Like a little bitch.
Right, exactly. So if there's compassion and curiosity and a willingness to prioritize the connection and the safety of how, how you both, that's, anything is figure outable.
Yeah. Do you feel that's true?
If there's a foundation of communication and trust and security, and both people are willing to do the work
and healthy,
yeah. Or even if you're not, I don't even know how you would determine health. We all have our stuff,
right.
But it's about how you have the hard conversations. It's about how you respond to feeling vulnerable in a relationship, what you do with that vulnerability, because that's what we're really talking about at the end of the day. It's like the vulnerability in this case being, I'm having a hard time, and how can I tell my partner I'm having a hard time about something that is not an option, right?
Yeah.
And the loyalty is absolutely going to be to the kid.
And it makes you feel like a monster.
Yeah, you might have some judgmental thoughts about yourself, or judgmental thoughts about your partner or the kid.
Right.
But, you have to be willing to have those hard conversations.
It's true. And I think when you're first coming out, like when I think about Melissa and I and our group and women dating, you're so scared about meeting someone, and about, maybe there's not going to be someone, or maybe that it's like, even when relationships were unhealthy, it seemed like then I was more apt to, I'm not saying this one is for our emailer, it's probably a great relationship and they're going to work it out. But in general, you stick around so long because in the beginning, you're so scared, and you're like, I did all this. I need to find someone.
So that speaks to that, that insecurity piece, that lack of, the fear of being alone, the fear of really anything keeps people in situations that are hard, but maybe don't have to be, or hard, but are too hard.
Right.
Right. And, you have to sort of, check the fear of never finding someone again with the expectations and standards that you're going to have in a relationship, that you can't be scared and therefore, quote, settle and also have it your way.
Yeah. Or just make excuses. Like, I feel like Melissa and I would say to each other, if our catalyst, this is back a few years ago, I feel like we would almost make excuses for the behavior of the catalyst because we didn't want to. We knew what needed to be done, and neither of us wanted to do it.
Yeah, fear
so
is
it would be
big
like
motivator for avoiding
Yeah.
hard conversations.
So
Sure.
it's just like you don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah, you don't want to find out that you're ultimately incompatible or that you're going to have to start over again. It's
You got to start
very
over
scary.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. So to your point, you're talking about kind of an extra layer of vulnerability for folks that are coming out later or leaving a marriage and, or finally finding someone that they connect with in a really
Exciting way.
exciting way. You'll kind of do anything to protect it.
Right.
Even if it means compromising your own truth or your own values or your own experience. But, it'll always show up, even if it's not right away. And so to be able to kind of decide going into a new relationship, as much as I want this to work out, I have to be true to myself.
Yeah.
I mean, being true to yourself is what enabled you to have the courage to leave the previous situation in the first place.
Right.
So you have to apply that courage wherever there is fear,
Right.
Wherever there's an uncertainty or vulnerability.
And you go back and forth so
course.
much. I mean, you wait.
Yeah, I think it is really hard to leave that first relationship, because it does feel like I've got to prove something.
Yeah.
And even though it's
Right.
bad, it's bad. It's hard. It's kind of like,
Absolutely.
this is my proof that it was okay and worth it.
Right.
Right. So you think I ought to be able to handle anything as long as it means that I've come out the other side as a winner in this situation.
Yeah.
In a relationship, and see, it was not all for nothing.
Yeah.
It blew up my
Here
life.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot at stake and there's a lot invested in it working out. So when these feelings come up of, resentment or frustration, it's hard to know where to put them.
Yeah. Or
Right?
just where do you draw the line of, okay, enough is
Exactly.
enough.
Right.
And I think that's where it's really hard. It's still hard.
It is still hard. And I
Yeah.
think it's hard when you're dating someone who doesn't have kids, because it is really hard for them to understand the sacrifice of time that you have to make
Right.
for those kids. Like, if your time, a parent's time is not their own.
Right.
Like,
No. When you go on a
Period.
vacation, it's not really, you're making dinners, you're making sure you do have to eat lunch between 12 and 2. You can't wait till 4.
That's right.
Like, those
Yeah.
are things
There's
that
a
we deal with.
routine.
Yeah, there's a routine.
Yeah, I mean, being a parent literally means that you are not the center of your own universe anymore.
No.
And so it's natural to expect that your partner respects that and
Yeah.
understands it. And that partner has their own universe, right? Maybe they don't have kids because they didn't ever want kids.
Right.
And so, that can be a conversation too. And I think in the beginning when you're dating, it's a really good thing to bring up in the beginning. I have kids, you don't. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you anticipate might be hard for you?
Right.
Here are some of the things that I anticipate could be hard. You don't have kids. What was that a decision that you made? Was it, timing? Was it what, if you decided not to have kids, does that mean that being with a partner that does brings some concerns up for you, right? You can't be afraid to just name
the
elephant.
monster.
Yeah. Just call it out in the beginning before you have to then navigate hard situations.
Right. I even feel like sometimes in mine, my partner would have wanted more kids. And so sometimes there's a feeling of I have 3, she has 1. And oftentimes there's always one of mine around. It seems like I don't ever go a day without seeing the kids in some capacity. Mm-hmm. And I feel like sometimes I have to be really compassionate around, she really is 50-50 and there is one. So it's when he's gone half the time, I'm still getting pop-ins and I've got to pick up here or do something here because, my ex-husband and I are outnumbered. So we're always still helping each other and diving in.
Yeah. I mean, like you were saying before, your energy, your resources are kind of spoken for already before you get into a new relationship. So it's, again, establishing those expectations in the beginning.
Right.
And troubleshooting as you go somewhat, but it's, it's always going to be a work in progress. But if you have that foundation of communication and honesty and willingness to name the hard thing in the room, you have a much better shot at getting through it.
Right. I want to revisit too, you guys saying and Melissa saying it was okay with her for her partner to just have other plans. At what point though, if you're, I'm thinking if I were dating someone at the beginning, that's great. But now 3 years in, if I'm going to my parents' house with the kids, like I would want you to go because it just feels gross to me that we're a family and I'm going on my vacation without you. Like, do you, at some point, is the expectation if we're going to be together, or could it be that we go on forever and it's kind of we are together but not together?
It's what you decide together is going to work, you know? I mean, if it's a really strong value and need for you, then you got to declare that.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's always a way to negotiate or compromise, but at the end of the day, if you have, if you know, you're not able to respect each other's feelings and preferences and needs, like that is going to show up elsewhere. Even if it's not in that particular arena, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, what is the culture of our relationship going to be, right? Are we going to, again, you know, name these things as they come up? You know, maybe you might say it's okay in the beginning as we get to know each other, but if we become more committed, it's a really important family value of mine that my partner, you know, comes with me, right? Or is, you know, participates. It's really important to me. I'm traditional that way or whatever, right? And then, you know, that person has to really reflect, you know, like, is that something that I'm willing or able to do without compromising too much who I know myself to be, right? You know, and we all, look, a mature relationship includes doing things that you don't feel like doing sometimes.
Yeah.
But there needs to be a balance, I think, right? That, you know, if you feel like you're always compromising in the same direction and not getting, you know, that same commitment to negotiate and compromise in return, then that's an imbalance.
Right.
Right.
And then even that, maybe, I'm sure it's not always 50-50. So it's like even that you have to decide whether you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hard.
There's people that make this work though. I mean, remember the Mormon No More family that we had on, Lena and Sally? They have 7 kids between the two of them.
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm sure they would say that it's hard.
Oh, I've got
sure.
It's hard
but
for
it's
so
like,
many reasons. Being a parent, no matter what your
we're
situation
looking
is,
at with having, you know, it's nothing compared to it's more than the Brady Bunch.
That's
you know?
true. Especially your kids, Melissa, because yours are like a breeze. Have you ever met her kids?
No, but
oh my God,
so
Jamie,
cute.
They're like perfect.
Aw.
Perfect angels. Like
they're very good kids.
Mine are wild. Like when I look at hers and then I look at mine, I'm like, mine were just born wild. They're wild. They run. They're jumping on stuff.
Mine were like that, like as toddlers, but they have toned down. For sure.
They're so good.
They're not jumping off the walls. They're just chilling out, watching TV, playing their iPads, going outside.
And I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that, you know, every kid is different. And,
they are. But I just spending time with hers, I'm like, God, you're not asking. I mean, what I'm asking people to do is a lot.
If you think my kids are a lot, then you need to walk.
Right?
They're like the easiest kids on the planet. So
it's true. But yeah, I guess I see both sides because I feel like when I first got with my partner, like blending was really hard. Sure. And I did find it, you're not going to love somebody else's child the first month, the first year. You know, really what they're bringing to the table is hardship at the beginning because it's, you know, they're with your kids, they're fighting, there's all kinds of dynamics at play.
Well, it's a relationship in and of itself. I mean, you're in a relationship with the adult, but you're also building a relationship with this other total stranger.
Yeah.
So, you know, and there's, I think, an assumption or a hope or expectation even that you're going to fall in love with the kid because you're in love with their parents.
Yeah. It just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
You know, sometimes parents don't like their own kids.
Right.
Sometimes. So, you know, to ask or expect someone is going to, you know, fall in love with your kid just because they're yours is unrealistic.
It's totally unrealistic.
So, and that's the other kind of just bit of advice, like manage your expectations.
Yeah.
You know, like be
and
realistic.
Kids aren't around forever. Like, you know,
that's the other thing.
Are 8 and 10. They're going to be out of the house in 10 years.
But it's like, God, I can't live like that thinking that, I don't know, like I wouldn't want someone to date me being like, oh.
Counting down.
Yeah, counting down. We only have him for 10 more years. Like he's my world.
Right. That time to me is precious. Like, I don't want to wish my life away.
That's it.
I want to embrace it and love it.
But it's okay if your partner does.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, honestly, like it's okay for them to be like, you know what? I love this person so much. There's so many good things that make it worth it for me to hang in there. But yeah, I do have a countdown going on, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe they don't talk about it. But
no.
It's okay to have a countdown for your partner's kids to be out of the
Have a
house.
countdown.
I like that.
You know,
like
I mean, it is like, let's be honest, because I think the pressure to like love someone else's kids is ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
So, you know,
I
obviously,
think I would have a really hard time with that.
of course,
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing, you know, but again, it's like big picture. What are the things about this relationship that make it worth it for me to hang in there with this one difficult thing?
And it does grow. Like, it is interesting to me. Like, the more time we spent together, the more I was feeling myself affectionate for my stepson. Like, I would feel this sense of like I cared. Like, I remember the other day I was dropping him off at camp, and he's like tiny and like walking with his lunchbox, and I'm watching him walk away, and like I did feel a sense of like, I hope there's like someone on the other side to intercept him. I don't want him to like walk in and not know anyone.
That's so sweet.
And it was like, I care about him.
You sound surprised.
I know. I was like, wow, when did this happen? Like,
Look at me.
Look at me. Like, I feel myself affectionate for him more and more all the time.
Yeah. So that's another kind of, you know,
Hope.
hopeful.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it is a new relationship. I don't have to fall in love right away because that doesn't happen anyway, even between two adults. Why don't I, you know, try to give myself permission to take my time getting to know this little person.
Yeah.
Figure out a way to connect that is sort of more on my terms too.
Yes.
You know, you have the luxury of not being the parent, which means you get to decide, you know, how you want to show up in the rapport building phase or what, you know, like, hey, I'm not going to be the person here who watches whatever you want on TV. I want to take a turn.
Yeah.
Can you handle it kind of thing? You know? Like, don't be afraid to be yourself and ask for what you need in the relationship with the kid, depending how old they are, and to be open to getting to know them.
Yes.
You know, maybe they're rambunctious and that's annoying, but what if you decided, you know what, I'm going to be rambunctious too today. Let's both jump on the couch.
Right.
So it's kind of like the effort there is not squashing your annoyance, but trying to meet the kid where the kid is.
Right.
Because your intention is to make the best of a situation that's otherwise hard for the sake of your relationship, right? So it's kind of like asking yourself to, you know, dig a little bit deep for a willingness to try on some flexibility and maybe experiment a little bit. You know, maybe there's a certain kind of movie that the kid really enjoys, and so maybe you make the movie night, you know, centered around the kid.
Yeah.
Because maybe the kid watching a movie that he chose means that the two of you get some extra time together, you know, uninterrupted.
Right.
Like, what's more important to you, being chosen between you and the kid or having the kind of experience that you want to have, which is usually peaceful, connected, fun, enjoyable.
Yeah.
Which might include a little compromise.
And I like what you said there about, because I think that is how you love her. Is to do what you said, have the movie be about them, and
to take turns.
Yeah,
you know, being the priority.
And one of my kids' favorite things to do is to play video games with me, with my previous partner. Like, that was like a great way for them to like bond, you know?
Yeah,
and it's fun for me too. I'm like, I want to play Mario Kart, sure. Like,
exactly.
They view it as this like massive deal.
Absolutely. And it goes such a long way. And to your point, Melissa, earlier, you know, the kid might be experiencing his or her own adjustment. If your kid is regulated and feels safe and is doing okay, the kid's going to be easier.
Yeah, it's so true.
To spend time with, right?
Yeah.
I mean, kids are not trying to be annoying on purpose.
No
kid wants to
have everyone be annoyed.
No.
Yeah.
You know, all kids are good kids.
Right.
So it's kind of like you got to get sort of creative and willing to experiment with different things in an effort to have that rapport, because it goes a long way for everybody involved.
Right. I think that is such good advice for the partner of this person too. Like, you put that effort in, it likely will come back and you will end up.
But you've got to decide. You
Yeah.
have to choose the choice to lean in
Yeah.
to the situation you're in. Because to be half in and half out creates a lot of tension and a lot of ambivalence and a lot of resentment.
Right.
So it's like, if I'm going to be in, if I'm going to really try to make this work, what are some ways that I can show up a little bit differently so that I'm getting what I need, but I'm also appreciating that there's three of us adjusting to this, not just me.
Right. I think that's really good advice and gives people hope that they can eventually it'll look different than it does today. And kids morph. Like I know like mine go through phases where they pick my partner over me. Like they would rather have her take them
And
to
don't you
something.
love that?
Yeah, I'm like, please do take him. Will you take the others?
do.
Will you take the other 3 while you're on your way?
Right.
So
For like a week, that'd be great.
exactly. Well, Jaime, I know we've kept you over what we said, so
okay.
thank you so
My
much.
pleasure.
And we want to
thank you.
introduce the exciting thing we've got coming.
Oh yeah, we're gonna start a little segment with Jaime where it's Ask Jaime, Ask Dr. Jaime, and
Exactly.
people can submit questions to ask, and Jaime will answer them.
Yes, and we're hoping to do it every week, but it might be every other week as Jamie's schedule will permit.
Yeah, we're still fleshing out how
how it's going to look
format-wise, but, definitely send in what you got, and we'll see what we can do.
Jaime, thank you.
Yeah, if you guys are
so
gonna
much.
send them to the Gmail account, please,
Yes.
and just title it Dr. Jaime question,
Yep.
something like that,
That's-
so we can
yeah,
find
And
it.
to you guys, not to me.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good idea.
Right,
So,
to us,
to
Melissa and Allie at
Melissa-
gmail.com.
Yeah, Melissa and Allie at gmail.com. And Melissa is with 1 S. And title the subject Dr. Jaime or Ask Dr. Jaime, and we'll know. And Jaime, just so you know, we get so many emails that say we love the Dr. Jaime
I'm so
episodes.
happy.
It literally, I stopped even telling you because I'm like, it's daily. When I look, it's always like, oh, and Dr. Jaime. So this will be great.
I'm thrilled. I'm so glad it's helpful, and I'm happy to do it, and excited to, be more involved.
Excellent. Well, have a good day, everyone.
Yeah.
All right, see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Want to support the Lesbian Chronicles podcast? Rate us and write a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
We love listener feedback. If you'd like to share your story, email us at melissaandallie@gmail.com. That's Melissa, MELISA, and Allie, ALLI, @gmail.com. Or follow us on Instagram at Lesbian Chronicles.